Look, leadership is not a popularity contest, despite what some people might think. I know that no one likes to be disliked, and certainly you shouldn't go out of your way to be disliked by anyone, but you need to have the courage to be disliked because there's definitely going to be decisions that you have to make which isn't going to suit everyone. I'm a firm believer that the core skill that you have as a leader is to be able to listen and create spaces that are intentional for you to hear what is happening and for you to take action. Because what is the point of you listening if it doesn't inform how you're going to make decisions? If people give you the time of day to talk about what's concerning them and what's on their minds, and you never do anything about it, they will become increasingly frustrated, and that will lead to people disengaging. And that's not what we want. You create listening spaces because you genuinely want people to thrive under your leadership. But people thriving under your leadership doesn't mean that you're always going to be doing things in the way that they want or in the way that they see it. So many people have an opinion of what you should do as a leader, and they don't necessarily think about how they are leading themselves. If you're a leader by title, it doesn't necessarily mean that people are following your leadership. And at best, having a title gives you some time to be able to demonstrate to others that they should follow the things that you're saying. I remember once when I had someone I was managing who was underperforming. This person had wanted promotion for years and hadn't been able to secure promotion. And I was really pleased at being able to appoint them to a senior position. But this person wasn't thriving and wasn't able to step up to the mark despite so many conversations during their probation period. And in the end, we just had to come to the conclusion that it was a position that didn't really suit them and they weren't able to lead in the way that I needed them to if they were going to be permanent in that role. But even up till today, we still get on very well in the workplace as friends. I was able to lead with compassion, with kindness, provide the support that the person needed as much as I was able to. And we both had to reach the same conclusion. And I remember once when I had to deal with a really big, knotty problem in the organization. The impacts of maintaining the status quo was causing a lot of anxiety amongst the teams, and it couldn't really carry on in that way. And I was under tremendous pressure from the person who was my director at the time, as well as the team. So it was coming from all angles. And in the end, I remember being in the room with my director and I was talking them through my proposed approach to the solution. And they said to me, "Is it going to work?" And I was absolutely certain that it was going to work because I understood that the process was inclusive and that it brought in a number of different voices. And going through this approach itself would flush out the solution. Leading requires you to take a position, and not everyone is going to be bought into that position that you take straight away. But you have to be really clear upon the direction in which you're leading people and why. And of course, you need to communicate that in a way that is open and that engages people. But ultimately, you are the one who has to make a decision because you have to be accountable for the people that you lead. But here's the thing: when you're leading people through change, the status quo is going to suit some people. So the situation, the circumstance, whether it's within a team or in a larger organization, or even individually in your personal life, where you're going to make a pivot or a change, where you are now is going to suit some people. And therefore, you have to be really connected and clear as to what it is that you're going to do, why it is important, so that you can move through the noise in a way that is kind, that's compassionate to yourself and to others. The thing with listening is that you're able to have the kind of conversations which might be tricky, but nevertheless, they are conversations that you need to have. I had an experience once where someone basically wanted my job and they felt that they should be the person doing my job. They'd never applied for my role before, but they felt that it's something that they should do. They knew nothing about my past work experiences, my qualifications, but I am the type of leader that encourages people to step forward and to do things that are meaningful for them. And some people take that as a sign that leadership is easy. It can look easy, but it's not necessarily easy. If you've ever been in a position where someone has tried to undermine your leadership, it really does call into question your ability to lead yourself well and not to lead from an emotional state. You need to be really clear and you need to address it at the earliest opportunity. I had a situation before where someone created a whole WhatsApp group to try and undermine my leadership. And as soon as I found out that this was happening, I had to confront the entire team. And I didn't feel any qualms about confronting the entire team because it was the fair thing to do. It was distressing some people who didn't want any part in that kind of behavior. It was inevitably going to undermine the performance and the coherence of the team and the kind of atmosphere that you'd have within the culture of the team. And so I had to address it head on. I had a one to one with the person privately in a room first and asked them about the existence of the WhatsApp group. And when I spoke to them about it, they really reflected on the level of their professionalism, which they said was well below the standard that they would normally expect of themselves. I was able to agree from that point how to move forward. And then I had a conversation with the entire team, and I didn't shy away from it. And of course, some people felt uncomfortable in that conversation. Some people didn't want to speak up. Some people had separate conversations with me. But the thing which is important is not to avoid these types of conversations, not to avoid conflict because it makes you or someone else feel uncomfortable. Because leadership calls for you to step up sometimes and do the uncomfortable thing. You need to send out the right signal for yourself and for the team. You need to be confident in your approach. It needs to be fair, it needs to be open, it needs to give people the opportunities to speak up. But one thing is clear is that you will need to set direction so that those who no longer want to be part of the team can make the decision to move on. And those who really want to be part of the team understand and uphold the values upon which the team is going to thrive. It is really important to lead by example and to role model behaviors, not only when times are good, but in times of challenge. And it all starts with listening. I know so many people concentrate on having executive presence and talking really well and talking to provide information and talking to your intended audience in the right way. Of course, speaking is important, but listening, I can't move away from that. Listening is going to be an essential skill for you to be able to really move in leadership in a way that is decisive, clear, and fair.